Imagine needing to take medication in public, only to feel people staring, wondering why you're letting yourself go. Or perhaps you skip checking your blood sugar in front of others to avoid their judgments. These moments are more than uncomfortable, they're stigmatizing. And they impact millions of people with diabetes every single day. But what if I told you that these moments of shame or self-doubt could seriously harm your health? Let's talk about why diabetes stigma exists, how it affects self-care, and what we can do about it. What is diabetes stigma? First, let's clear up what we mean by diabetes stigma. It's the feeling of being judged, shamed, or even blamed for having a chronic condition. People with diabetes often feel like they're under a microscope, with others assuming they must have done something wrong to end up with the disease. But diabetes isn't about blame. It's about living with a condition that's complex and challenging. People who experience diabetes stigma might hear things like, "Should you be eating that? Isn't diabetes preventable? You wouldn't have this if you just lost weight." These comments might seem harmless to some, but they can chip away at a person's confidence, leading them to feel isolated and responsible for their condition. Over time, diabetes stigma can affect mental health and self-care, leading to a spiral of guilt, anxiety, and even depression. Who feels diabetes stigma? Diabetes affects roughly 29 million people in the United States alone, but it doesn't affect everyone in the same way. People with type 1 diabetes face challenges, such as managing blood glucose levels and taking insulin. Type 2 diabetes is often linked with weight, leading many to feel blamed for having the disease. But here's the thing, whether it's type 1 or type 2, no one chooses to have diabetes. Think about it like this, if you break your leg, no one shames you for needing a cast. But when it comes to diabetes, people sometimes feel free to comment on your weight, what you're eating, or how you're managing your condition. These criticisms can make a person feel that they're failing somehow. It can keep them from getting the help they need, like insulin, mental health support, or time to care for themselves. How diabetes stigma shows up. People with diabetes experience stigma in lots of ways. Taking insulin, this essential treatment can draw stares and whispers, making people feel self-conscious about doing it in public. Hypoglycemic episodes, these episodes, which can cause shaking, sweating, and dizziness, are serious medical events. But they're sometimes misunderstood by others as weakness or poor control. Checking blood sugar, some may skip checking their blood sugar levels if they're around people who might judge them. This can lead to missed symptoms and potentially dangerous situations. Dietary choices, when people with diabetes avoid certain foods, they may feel self-conscious or worried that others see them as picky or difficult. Weight and body image, there's a misconception that type 2 diabetes is only caused by weight. In reality, genetics, lifestyle, and other health factors play a role. Dr. Elizabeth Wassenaar, an expert in mental health and eating disorders, explains that the stigma around body size is strongly linked to diabetes. This association leaves people feeling judged not just for their diabetes, but for their bodies as well. Why diabetes stigma persists? So why does this stigma exist in the first place? There are a few reasons. One is that people often associate the disease with personal responsibility. Many believe that diabetes, especially type 2, can be avoided with diet and exercise. While these factors can play a role, they're not the full story. Dr. Jacqueline Morris, a dietitian, explains that people with diabetes often feel guilty or ashamed, blaming themselves when the truth is that diabetes is a complex health condition influenced by many factors. Media can play a role, too. We sometimes see news stories about rising healthcare costs linked to diabetes treatments. These reports can make it seem like diabetes is a burden on society, leading people to downplay its impact and assume it can be solved with a few lifestyle tweaks. But diabetes isn't a quick fix condition, it requires ongoing care and management. The real impact of diabetes stigma. Stigma doesn't just hurt people's feelings, it can also harm their health. Studies have shown that diabetes stigma is linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even diabetes-related distress. A 2020 study found that people who experience diabetes stigma often feel isolated and guilty, which can stop them from taking care of themselves. Dr. Wasenar explains that many of her patients feel like they brought their condition on themselves. When people start to believe this, it becomes harder to ask for help, stick to treatment plans, or even talk to healthcare providers about what they're going through. In fact, stigma can actually make it harder for people to improve their health. When someone feels that they're being judged, they're less likely to seek care, less likely to manage their condition, and more likely to experience complications as a result. And it doesn't just affect individuals. Diabetes stigma can show up in places like the workplace, where people may feel uncomfortable asking for breaks to monitor their blood sugar. A study from Diabetes UK found that 1/3 of people with diabetes haven't told their employers about their condition, and some face outright discrimination. This stigma creates barriers that make it harder for people to live openly with diabetes, affecting their job performance, relationships, and even their finances. What can we do to combat diabetes stigma? So, what can be done? Awareness is the first step. We need to recognize that diabetes isn't about weakness or a lack of willpower. It's about managing a challenging, chronic condition that deserves understanding and respect. Here are a few practical steps to help reduce diabetes stigma. 1. Get informed, educate yourself and others about diabetes. Recognize that it's a complex condition that doesn't always have a clear-cut cause. 2. Be compassionate. Instead of asking, "Should you be eating that?" try asking, "How can I support you?" Compassion goes a long way in making people feel comfortable and accepted. 3. Avoid assumptions. Don't assume that someone's body size or food choices are linked to their diabetes. Everyone's journey is different. 4. Speak up. If you see someone facing stigma or discrimination, step in. You can be an ally and help change the conversation. 5. Encourage open dialogue. Creating a safe space to talk about diabetes without fear of judgment can help reduce stigma. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it. If you're living with diabetes and feel the effects of stigma, remember that you're not alone. Talk to your healthcare team about how you're feeling. Mental health support can be crucial, and addressing your emotional well-being can also help improve your diabetes management. Closing thoughts. Living with diabetes is hard enough without the added burden of stigma. By learning more and treating each other with respect, we can help reduce the shame and isolation that too often accompany this disease. Let's replace judgment with understanding, and let's make it easier for everyone to live healthier, happier lives. And remember, taking care of your health isn't just about blood sugar, it's about caring for your entire self, mind, and body. So let's work together to break down the barriers of diabetes stigma and create a world where everyone can seek the support they need without fear or shame.